Now, having the background knowledge about the bipolar affective disorders, that basically gives you an extreme of the personalities. On one hand, you have the mania or the hypomania, and on the other hand, you have the depressive episode. So, we're talking about the scenario in which you have these mood disorders. Now, there are a lot of miscellaneous mood disorders that are not diagnosed as the bipolar affective disorders, and that doesn't go with the criteria of this condition. So, we are going to talk about these miscellaneous mood disorders in this section. Now, as we've already talked about, that sometimes the risk factors that we've already studied, that were the risk factors for the bipolar affective disorders, they can affect the mood of the person. It can be any social pressures, it can be the economic conditions of that person, it can be the medications or the prolonged medications that he's been using, it can be a chronic medical condition that he's suffering from, for example Cushing's disease, hypertension, diabetes mellitus, insomnia. So all of these conditions can basically affect the mood of that person. So these seasonal affective disorders, they are sometimes quite commonly seen, and the summers are basically the seasons in which the person's mood is affected quite commonly. On the other hand, the childbirth and the other situations in the life of a person, the adverse situations can affect the mood of a person as well, and we can see these mood disorders in such individuals quite commonly. Then we have the premenstrual depression. That is again one of the phenomena quite commonly seen in obviously the females that we see. When we talk about the premenstrual depression, we cannot negate or we cannot ignore the postmenopausal affective disorders as well. So all of these hormonal changes that the female go through during her life or during the phases of her life, they're going to affect the mood of that individual quite significantly. So this is what we're going to talk about right now, talking about the seasonal affective disorders. The seasonal fluctuations, they affect the brain and they affect even the hormones of that person, and so the health and the mood is affected in quite a significant way. Then we have the somatic syndrome and the hypersomnia. On the other hand, hypersomnia is basically an increased in the sleep, or on the other hand, you can have, on the other extreme, you can have insomnia observed in such individuals. Then the daytime solemnness or the daytime depression is one of the features that is seen in such individuals. The carbohydrate craving, and that is again a vicious cycle. You'll gain weight after that, and again you'll have that craving. So all of this cycle is going to be quite vicious. Mild to moderate symptoms, the management is quite significant, in which you basically ask the person to exercise. The daylight exposure is very common in such individuals. Light therapy is considered. The non-sedative antidepressants are also considered in such individuals with seasonal disorders that are affecting the mood of that individual. Then the childbirth affective disorders, in which there are maternity blues or the postmortem blues, whippiness or irritability. It is quite commonly observed in such individuals. And then we have sometimes they merge with the depression. Despondency is one of the symptoms, in which basically you are dependent upon the individuals that are surrounding you, and an individual, the baby that we're talking about, is dependent upon that person who is basically suffering from that mood disorder. So it can affect the baby a lot. Then we have the postnatal depression. The onset is usually within 6 weeks of delivery. So this time period is again very crucial. So if you have the depression within the 6 weeks of delivery, it is termed or regarded as the postnatal depression. The depression symptoms, they are fluctuating mood disorders, they are backache, fatigue, and the perineal pain is quite commonly seen. Therapies, there are a lot of therapies, and counseling, the foremost therapy that you do in such individuals. The psychological therapy is very successful in such individuals. Then we have the CBT, that is basically the cognitive behavioral therapy, and most of the part of this cognitive behavioral therapy makes you think in a particular way after that counseling sessions. So the interpersonal therapy is again very important. You have that personal psychiatrist and you share your problems with that psychiatrist, and you share your views, your thinking, your way of perception is basically focused on, and he basically emphasizes to improve that way of thinking. The antidepressant prescriptions are quite commonly given in such individuals with postnatal depression. Now, while we've already talked about the postnatal depression or the postpartum blues, it's again very important that the childbirth is often associated with the moods. So, puerperal psychosis is another feature that is quite commonly seen, and it basically occurs the time period that is crucial for this puerperal psychosis is the first month postpartum period. Frequency of 1 or 2 per thousand deliveries is very common in such individuals. There is an acute onset of symptoms, and the perplexity and the confusion is observed in such individuals with puerperal psychosis. Then we have pregnancy. There is depression as well as anxiety in such individuals. The cognitive behavioral therapy is observed or is looked for when we are managing such a case of pregnancy. Interpersonal therapies, these are basically the prophylactics that we're going to take that mother out of that particular puerperal psychosis. So the group therapy, so if there are a lot of individuals, basically groups are formed for the pregnant women, and they're counseled for the hormonal changes and the changes in their life, and they're basically pre-prepared for that change in their life. The SSRIs, and that they are basically considered as a treatment, escitalopram, citalopram, and sertraline. So these are the treatment modalities that we have to look for over here. Then the premenstrual depression is also considered in such individuals. Changes in well-being across the woman's menstrual cycle, and then we have the premenstrual syndrome that is basically cyclical, and then the patient will give you a history that he has the physiological symptoms as well. He'll complain of headache, backache, nausea. All of these symptoms are basically going to be cyclical, and then the emotional symptoms and the mood disorders are also seen in such individuals. They are similar to depressive illness. Then the typical symptoms that are observed in such an individual are the low mood of the individual. Then he'll basically give you a history of anxiety or tension before he's having that menstrual period. Anger and irritability or easy arousal or impulsivity is observed in such individuals due to those hormonal changes. And then the patient will give you a history of lethargy and poor concentration as well. The changes in sleep, and they're also observed in appetite as well for that person. So this premenstrual depression can also be looked for when you are managing a case of premenstrual depression. The CBT, that is the cognitive behavioral therapy, comes quite handy when you are counseling such patients, because just by counseling or just by group therapies, these patients can come out of that depressive episode that you're working on. So in this section, basically, we focused on the multiple mood disorders that we come across, in which basically they're not categorized in the bipolar affective disorders, but still they are the mood disorders, and dysthymia is observed in these disorders as well. So that is the end to this section. Thank you for watching sqadia.com.